some kind of flexibility in there as well, because you've got to expect that your plan isn't going to go to plan, because my plans never ever go to plan. and you've just got to, you know, in a few episodes ago talking about Brexit and the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff, you've just got to be like, right, ready to make a new plan straight away and keep moving forward.
Cool.
Well, I think the point here is whether you're comfortable with change or whether you're uncomfortable with change, you better get used to it, because the world is changing faster than ever and it's going to just continue accelerating. So how can you get yourself to the stage where you are radically adaptable? Plans are important, but it's half of the story. You also need the inner peace to be able to make those plans and to adapt those plans.
Mate.
Hey, shut up. No, you shut up. No, you shut up. You shut up. You're the one talking. Well, there's no one else here. Look, everybody, just shut up. What's that? The wind.
That's 3. Why hasn't the 4th person come up? Help. No in the waiting room. You're Max, you're muted. It's Sarah waiting for.
I'm back in the room.
You're back in the room. Yeah, showing your age, mate. Actually, I was watching the Catherine Tate show on BBC iPlayer, which is very entertaining. How's it going so far? People happy?
Yeah, enjoying it.
Yep. So it's just a natural flowing conversation. So where did we end? It was the fear, wasn't it?
Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of everything.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fear of life.
Yes.
Indeed. Right. So I'll be doing the intro in a moment. 5, 4. Hi, LinkedIn family. Jonathan here from Some Talented People, and we continue our discussion about setting moonshot goals. And luckily, we're brave enough, and in my case ugly enough, to take the fact that there are fears that affect us all, and we started talking about that. We started talking about failure and success and all the things that happen. And obviously both Sarah and Paul are coaches, and so I'm interested, Sarah, in your, first of all, the things that you notice under the surface, and then how you approach dealing with them.
So when you say things under the surface, do you mean common fears and beliefs that tend to come up with people that I work with?
I think that ultimately there are probably a small number of things that manifest in all sorts of different wrappings, but they come down to base fears like we talked about before. The process of getting beneath what a customer presents to you to find out what's really going on. How do you go about that?
So I should probably start by saying, you know, there's a spectrum of, you know, risk taking. And I guess the people that I tend to work with are already more onto the risk taking side. So perhaps they have more of that entrepreneurial spirit already. And that means, you know, they're really at the stage where they are ready to be pushed to 10x. Whereas if you're starting right at the beginning, getting someone from a corporate environment to become an entrepreneur, it's a different set of fears. So I can talk to the people that I work with. It's I guess, pushing them out of their usual way of doing things, getting them to think outside the box, getting them to think about how they're going to scale and grow very quickly earlier on than they would think. And you'll see when you're talking to someone what they're resistant to. So usually people won't just be like, oh yes, great, I can 10x my revenue in the next year. That totally makes sense to me. Although you do get some people like that. It's going under the surface to see what exactly they're resistant to And with most people, they're almost afraid to dream. They're afraid to vocalize what it is that they really want, because they're already anticipating what it will feel like to fail. So what it will feel like to not achieve those goals. And, you know, if you really care about what you do, that's actually quite a blow if you let it get to you already. So you need to really have this strong why to connect to. You need to set a goal and work backwards, but not put huge amounts of pressure on yourself to meet this much bigger goal than you've set yourself. So if it takes you 3 years to 10x instead of 2, fine, it's probably still quicker than if you'd have set smaller goals.
Understand. So, interesting thing, I just finished reading this.
Oh, I love Seth Godin.
Oh my God, what a book. So, it says in there, which is what I've been saying actually in my own book, I don't normally plug it, but it's worth a plug. Children Spectacular, Why Aren't More Adults, 55 quid. Let me know if you want to buy a copy. And basically what the Seth Godin book says is that our educational systems were designed for empire in the Industrial Revolution to produce cogs for a big machine. And the fears that people have, that we've been conditioned from birth, basically, but for the minute we go to school with right, wrong, and averages, and all this minuscule thinking, so that we are conditioned not to think expansively. But a dyslexic like me or like Max, we can go, whoa. So, Paul, similar question. It's getting underneath this barrier or around it or over it. What do you do?
I think it's almost running alongside them on their journey. So as Sarah said, absolutely right. You know, you'll be sat in front of a client, you'll suggest something to them, and their body language suggests something isn't quite sitting right with them. So our job is to really talk to that client and find out where those fears are. And then once you know where the fears are, you can help them to overcome those fears. And it really is very often, as Sarah said, just almost a misunderstanding of what can be achievable, what can be achieved. It's being able to dream big. If you're going to dream, you might as well dream big. So dream big, aim for that big goal, and then see how far you get with it. And again, it comes back to planning. If you planned the journey to get to that 10x or 20x or wherever it is that you want to get to, fabulous. I think another problem that I come up against quite a lot is with businesses who have marketed themselves and sold themselves very, very well, but they've not grown the business as the demand has increased. And so what happens is they get overwhelmed. And that fear of being overwhelmed again is also something that plays on their mind. So it's suggesting how they might avoid that in the future, because we all learn from past experiences.
Indeed.
And the assumption is that we've tried that before and it didn't work. No, you tried it before and it didn't work because you didn't actually have the right plans in place to grow the business.
Sydney, with that perspective that you've now just heard from both Sarah and from Paul, what element do you think, and you don't have to answer this, but what element do you think, other than it being part of what you think in your own head, do you know what it is? Now we looked at some of those common fears.
What do you mean? What is like?
So you're growing at a pretty good pace. You're virtually booked out. But when we spoke about the sort of limiting factors, you mentioned not working in an office, working by yourself. We've then looked at the fears that are general across customers that both Sarah and Paul talk about.